Welcome to Candlewick Library. I'm Cheryl, and today is going to be kind of a hodgepodge video where I am talking about the books I read in April, the books I want to read in May, and a road trip that we went on. So, a little of everything. First, I want to share two books that Doug finished. He read Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. I want to read this too, but I haven't got around to it yet. But he really loved it, so that was good. And then he read Down the Long Hills by Louis L'Amour, which is a book I recommended to him that I remember really loving this book and the movie that was made of it when I was a kid. I hardly remember anything from it. I just remember really liking it. So I'm hoping to get to this later this year as well. He's never read a Louis L'Amour book, and I wanted it to be one that he didn't know the story because he hadn't seen any movies yet. So he really enjoyed that as well. And then for myself, I read two books in April. If you've watched me for a long time, you know that reading two books in a month is very low for me. I hardly read at all on the road trip. And that's mainly because I was the one driving. And then I was so tired every night, and my daughters were sharing a room with me, and they would want to go to bed around the time that I would be ready to maybe read. So I didn't want to have a light on, and I was so tired I was ready to go to bed most of the nights anyway. And we were very busy, so I just didn't get to reading very often. So by the end of the month, I have two books that I read and one DNF. So I'm going to start with the DNF. This happened before the trip. It was the first book I started to read in April. Doug really wanted to watch the movie Hamnet. Every week we take turns picking a date night movie here at home. So he was going to pick it, and I told him he couldn't because I needed to read it first because I already owned the book. So I started to read Hamnet by Maggie O'Farrell, and I was not feeling it. I don't know why. Everybody talks so highly of this book. It was written in present tense, at least the part I was reading first, and I thought that what was happening was interesting enough, and I was interested in what would happen, but I just wasn't in the mood for it at all. I didn't want to read at all in those first couple of days. And so I decided I would soft DNF it. I will probably come back to it eventually, but for right now, I'm not going to. We ended up watching Hamnet this past weekend. And so now, if you have read the book and watched the movie, you can tell me if it's still worth it for me to try to read the book, if there is more that I will get from it that I didn't get from the movie. I know that sounds so blasphemous to say, oh, I've watched it, I don't need to read it now. But since I wasn't invested in the book, I'm wondering if it's just the writing style isn't going to work with me, or if it was just the mood I was in. I'm not sure. So you can let me know if you still recommend that I read the book. The book that I said in my TBR video that I knew for sure I was going to read at least one book in April, and it was A Hope Unburied by Kimberly Woodhouse. This is the first book that I fully finished in April. And the reason I wanted to read this was because this takes place at the Dinosaur National Monument in Jensen, Utah, which is part of Vernal, Utah. And we've been there before, but I really wanted to visit it this year because of my Jurassic Reading Challenge. And I thought, since this book takes place there, I really wanted to read it before we went. And that was the first stop of our road trip. So I had to have this read by April 10th. However, it got to April 10th. We left on our road trip. I did not have this finished yet. So I took it with me, almost done, but not quite done. And we were planning on going to the National Monument that day. However, I did not realize how early it closed. And so by the time we got there and got settled into our hotel, it was only going to be open for about another half hour or so. And I didn't want to just go and be in a rush. So we decided that we would just have a really late start the next day, and we would go the next morning when it opened. So that gave me one extra night. And I was able to finish it that night on April 10th. This is the third in the series. It's called the Treasures of the Earth series. So it's the third book, and it is the final book. You do not have to read them in order because it is different characters each time in a different place each time. But I do recommend all three. The first one was my least favorite just because there were a few things in it that having to do with mental illness that I didn't like as much. Not that they were bad. It was just, maybe it's because it's too close to home because there is mental illness in my family. But the second book I really loved. And this one is my favorite of the three. Eliza has always been interested in digging for bones, and she would drag along her friend who he wasn't in the same class as her in society. She was in an upper class, very rich family, and he was not. He's a lower class family, but they were best friends because if I'm trying to remember exactly, it's been now a month almost since I read it, but his dad worked for her grandparents that she lived with. I think his dad was her teacher, her tutor. He has loved her for a very long time. but her grandfather made him make a promise that he would not pursue her romantically. So he has just made himself be in the background as her best friend, and she hasn't figured out yet that he's in love with her. She gets the opportunity to come out to Jensen, Utah to work at the Dinosaur National Monument under Earl Douglas, the man who found it. So if you don't know anything about the Dinosaur National Monument, this is a place where he was digging for bones. There were so many in one place that they ended up having the idea and being able to fulfill this idea of leaving them intact in this wall. So when you go into the National Monument, there's a visitor center with a bunch of different things you can do. And sometimes they have a shuttle bus there that will take you up to the quarry wall. And some people hike up it. This time they didn't have the bus running. And so we were able to just drive up to the second parking lot by the quarry. And you go into the quarry wall. It is huge. It is so big. And it's just, this whole building is this wall. It is packed full of dinosaur bones of all kinds. There's so many different kinds there. So you go up a big ramp to get into the building, and then you look at the wall from up there, and then you get to go down the ramp down to the bottom section, and then you can see the bottom section closer. There are even a few sections where they do let you touch the bones. They ask you, not to climb on things and to not touch them in the sections where they don't let you, to kind of keep that, I think, isolated in one spot. It is very cool. Very cool. If you like dinosaur bones and are interested in paleontology, it's a really great place to go. So Earl Douglas is the man who found it. He was a Christian and had a creationist worldview. And so I knew that wasn't really presented there that much, but it was interesting to read about him in her 3 books. She has quotes from him in all 3 of the books. And then in this book, Eliza works with him. So that was really cool. And then I was also able to find out a little bit more about him. She mentions a book that he wrote in this. And so I was on a mission when we went there to find that book. So anyway, with this book, there is also a guy who works with her at the dinosaur museum that she works at, who is jealous, and he feels like he should be the one getting all of the special favors. So he's kind of a villain in it. And then there's also someone, you don't know who it is at first, at the actual dig, the town around the dig site, upset about where they are digging because there are secrets she doesn't want to be unburied. And so there's a couple of different villain stories going on. It was really good. I really loved the faith content in this, the questioning that happened from some of the characters and the answers that came from that, because it felt relatable. And then also just her writing, I really love. So I highly recommend this book if you are interested in paleontology and historical fiction. It's really good. So as I'm going, I think I will talk about what we did on the road trip, and then I'll talk about the next book. So a little background on this trip. A little over, it was about 1.5 years ago. My parents came to me and they asked me if I would accompany them with my daughters on a road trip, because their best friends live in Tennessee. And these are people who have been in my life since before I was born. So my whole life, I have known these 2 people. I thought they were actually my aunt and uncle until I was about 15, which probably only happened because I was a Navy child and we moved around a lot. So I don't think I knew every bit of family dynamics in my family until we settled in Utah and I got to know everybody more. They have been a constant in my life. And even though we haven't seen them really consistently, because we've moved all over and then lived in Utah for so long, and then they've been in Tennessee for most of that time, if not all of that time. I'm not sure if they would want me to share their names and where they live in Tennessee on here, so I'm not going to. So the husband, he has been having a lot of health issues the past couple of years, and then my dad has as well, so they really felt anxious about seeing each other. It's been probably 9 years since they had seen each other. And for me, I hadn't seen them since my oldest daughter was 2. So it's been 18 years for me since I've seen them in person. And she is someone who I have leaned on a lot in the last couple of years as I was having a faith transition, because they are Southern Baptist. And she's helped me a lot with some questions I had and just talking me through some things. So I was really excited to see them, to have my daughters meet them, because my oldest daughter doesn't remember them since she was only 2, and my youngest daughter had never met them. And so my parents wanted to do that. Since we're going to be going all the way to Tennessee, there were some stops that they wanted to do along the way and out there. And then when I was talking to my husband about it, he said, well, if you're going all the way out to Tennessee, we should also go to Disney World while you're out there, and I will fly out and meet you guys for a few days, and then I'll fly home and you can finish the trip. So I asked my parents if they were interested in that. My mom really wanted to. We added a Disney World trip in the middle of this road trip. So we had a little over a week of road trip, and then Disney World, and then a little over a week of a road trip afterward. So it was quite intense. When we came up with the idea, I planned out the whole thing. I took a long time, many hours, planning out this trip with everything that they wanted to do, plus the visit to Tennessee, plus the Disney trip, and had it all planned for 2025. But then my dad had a stroke. So he was touch and go for a little while in the hospital. We didn't know if he was going to survive. And thankfully he did, and is stronger than he has been in many years. But he had a long recovery, and we weren't quite sure. I had to cancel everything for the trip, but I had my binder that had all of the plans in it and everything ready to go if they ever decided they wanted to do the trip. So then they did talk to me and said, okay, can you now plan this trip for 2026? And I said, okay. So I got back in, got the Disney week settled, and then started around that, since I knew that one would be the most important part as far as timing. And then I worked everything else in. This trip ended up being probably, in my history of trip planning, which I like to do, the trip that has had to have the most changes. And which is it was kind of funny, but afterward I look back and I think it happened exactly the way it needed to happen. I spent the first part of this year replanning the whole trip, getting everything set up, and we were gone for 3 weeks. It was going to be 3.5 weeks to begin with, but we cut out quite a few things. So we were originally going to be going to Gettysburg and some other places in Pennsylvania, but our lodging that we were going to stay at in that area didn't work out. And I was having a hard time finding anything in between stops that looked really good. I talked to them about it, and they agreed that they would rather just save that for another time. So we took Pennsylvania off the list. And because of that, I switched the whole trip up backwards, where instead of ending in Vernal, we were starting in Vernal. And so then on the way home, we were going to be going a north way where we would be kind of ending up in Wyoming and coming down to Utah. But the weather was crazy everywhere over the last few weeks, and there were so many tornadoes and tornado warnings and severe weather warnings that we switched it to a lower way of coming back through Texas and stuff. So I will get to that in a minute. But we had that part change. And then the very end of the trip, we were going, before driving back across the country, we were going to be going to Williamsburg, Colonial Williamsburg, and Mount Vernon. But the last time we went to Williamsburg was when my daughter was quite young, my oldest daughter, and we got rained out. So we didn't get to do everything. And when we were looking at the weather forecast, it was showing that it was going to be raining both days that we would be in that area again. And so we decided that we didn't want to go and pay for a hotel for a few nights, pay the tickets to get in, just to be rained out again. Unfortunately, one of those days ended up probably being sunny, so we probably could have still done it, but we didn't know that at the time. So we switched it and we took that off. So that ended up being almost exactly 3 weeks. My battery of my microphone just died. So my audio is obviously going to sound different now. Hopefully that won't be too distracting and it will still be okay. So sorry if that was distracting, and hopefully it still sounds good. So anyway, that was the story of the trip and why it happened, why it was just mostly my parents and my kids and I. So my parents wanted me to drive, and they rented a van, and I was in charge of driving. So we started out, like I said, in Vernal, and we have this little boot. It's a little Shopkins boot. My youngest daughter, when she was little, she loved Shopkins. And before I went to Europe in 2016, she had given me this little boot to take with me as a little mascot. And so I took pictures throughout the trip with this boot, the different places we went. And ever since then, this boot has gone on every trip we've ever gone on. In fact, one time we were on a trip to California and my daughter put it on a tray at McDonald's and it got thrown away. And the nicest boy in the whole world, when I went in looking for it and he found out what had happened, and I was like, I am kind of worried that it was on the tray and might be in the garbage. He said, I just emptied the garbages, but I will look for it. And he took us out to the dumpster and he climbed up on the garbage and pulled out a garbage bag and found it. I couldn't believe he did that. What a nice boy. And so, I mean, I ended up writing a letter to that McDonald's to make sure they knew how awesome this employee was and how he did something that he should not have had to do. I did not ask him to do it. I didn't want him to go through the garbage, but In fact, I would have done it myself. If he had said, well, you can go through the garbage, I would have done it. But he just did it, and it was so nice. So this little, and of course she got cleaned off really well after that. But this little boot has been so many places. So when we were in Vernal, I went around and found some of the dinosaur statues around town and took little pictures with Jennifer Rain with the dinosaurs. So when we were at the Dinosaur National Monument, I did end up getting this little dinosaur statue for my shelves. It's just as Dinosaur National Monument, and it has a Stegosaurus on it. So this is what the statue looks like. So that's going to be really fun on my shelf. I like to get Christmas ornaments everywhere we go where there's something special. I don't get one every single state we go through or anything like that. But if we stop somewhere or something happens, I like to get Christmas ornaments. And a lot of times I will get keychains for that because they're so much cheaper. So at the Dinosaur National Monument, I also got a little dinosaur, a little dinosaur keychain, so that I could have that for a Christmas ornament. And then I also got this little pin that says Dinosaur Crossing. I thought that was really cute. And then I did find the book that she talked about. It's called Speak to the Earth and It Will Teach You: The Life and Times of Earl Douglas, 1862 to 1931. It's a pretty big chunker. I don't know if I'm going to get to it this year or not. I think it would be good to get to it this year with all the books that I'm reading about dinosaurs, but I don't know for sure. But I am excited to read that and to own that. Going around Vernal, seeing the dinosaurs, that was so much fun. Going to the National Monument was really fun. After that, we drove to Denver, Colorado, where we stayed on an Air Force base there. That was really hard because we got there and we couldn't find the opening because only one gate was open. And we couldn't find it at first. It took us forever to find the gate. And then once we did, because I'm not in the military, I have not had problems with that before. If I was with my mom and dad, I've been able to get on bases, but they did not want to let me on. So thankfully, eventually they did, but that was kind of scary. And so we stayed there one night, and then the next day we drove to Salina, Kansas. And this was just a random Kansas town, a hotel off the side of the road. So while we were in Kansas, I did hear about these giant art installations that they have. I thought that would be a fun distraction during the driving. So at lunchtime that day, on the way to our hotel that night, we stopped in that town, we got lunch, we had a picnic in the car next to this big easel that has a Van Gogh painting on it. So that was really fun. They had a little free library there too. I didn't get anything from it, but we did get the little Happy Meal toys, and we didn't want them, so we just put them in the little free library. So hopefully some kid will come along to that and want those. And then the next day we went to Mascoutah, Illinois. I think that was what it was called. Again, another hotel just randomly off the highway. During this part of our trip, I was starting to get really anxious because when I picked up the rental van, the tire pressure was off. And he said, oh, just go and fill it up. It's, probably fine. And we just all thought it was weather because it had gotten kind of cold again in Utah. We had taken it to Big O the day we left and they filled it up. By this time, we realized there is actually a problem with this tire because it kept going down. Every day it would go down. And so we knew there was something wrong. We didn't know where to go. I was anxious about the tire every day. Our windshield wipers weren't working very good and we had some rainstorms. So we were kind of off to a little bit of a rough start, but we were still having fun. Then we went to, I'm trying to remember if this was before or after this day, but at some point in those couple of days, we went through St. Louis. And in St. Louis, we wanted to stop and go to Ulysses S. Grant's house. We got there, we went on a tour of his home and the grounds. The only thing that took away from that a little bit was that right before we got there, we were driving down the street and there was a school area. And I didn't notice at first that it was. And there was a sign that said school zone or something, and it was flashing. And so nobody was slowing down, but I saw that and I panicked. And so I slowed down really fast and was just going 20. And I don't know if that was the speed limit for a school zone there. It is here, but that's what I was going. And apparently, not the person right behind me, but the person behind that, I must have made him really mad. I don't know. But he flew around everybody and he got in front of me down the road a little bit and he slammed on his brakes right in front of me, trying to make me hit him. And I barely missed him. And then he leaned out of his car and just was swearing and yelling at me and just really animated, and I thought he was going to get out and come confront us physically. I was really nervous about it. And I think that some of the cars around us thought so too, because because there was one man that was in a car kind of to the side of us, and he slowed down and like stayed next to me until the guy was gone. Because what happened next was that he then sped off, and I was like, okay, good, he's gone. And then he did it again. He started slowing down, he slammed on his brakes again, but luckily I was pretty far back because I was trying to stay as far back as I could from him. He kept doing it over and over, and he would flip me off and he'd yell at me and swear at me, and he looked like he was so angry that we were pretty scared. My daughters were terrified because they've never experienced anything like that before. I waited until he was really far away. I was like, I'm going to slow down and I'm staying back and I tried to get a red light, which thankfully I did. And so I could see that he had left because I didn't want him to see where we were going. I did not want him anywhere near us when we stopped. And thankfully, like I said, there was a gentleman in a car next to us that stayed next to us until the guy was gone, and then he kept going. I'm pretty sure that that guy was kind of staying close in case he was needed. That was probably the worst part of the whole trip because it was pretty scary. I got these historical documents that say Portrait and Thoughts. And so it's, parchment that has just some of his writings on it. I thought that would be kind of a cool addition to our homeschool and our house. And then I also got a keychain there for a Christmas ornament. It just has the house on it, and it says Ulysses S. Grant. Our next big stop would be Kentucky, Florence, Kentucky. And we went there a few years ago when we went to the Ark and Creation Museum. We knew the hotel we wanted to stay in because we loved it last time. And it was one that would have 2 bedrooms and then the kitchen and living room area so that we could all be in the same room. And my parents would have one room, we had the other. And then we had the living room. I was able to cook meals for the dinner. On the way there, we stopped at 2 places that day. One of them was Santa Claus, Indiana, which I was so excited because I'd seen some things about it. Like, oh, this place is Santa Claus all year long. It's Christmas. And I expected to go and just feel Christmas spirit, even though it's in April. And we got there and there was a toy store open. But that was it. And there wasn't as much to do there as I thought there would be. So that was a little disappointing. However, what I've learned since then is that it's like they have during the summer that they open everything and it's all that. But I thought you can't really say it's Christmas all year long if you close the Christmas shop unless it's summer. So I think it's a little false advertising. But in the toy shop, we did go in there and it was a pretty basic toy shop. It wasn't, too exciting, but they did have a really cute display of Santa with a giant calico critter. And we're all kind of children around here. We all love calico critters. When I said, okay, they have to have calico critters in here somewhere. Otherwise, why would they have a giant one in there with Santa? So then we did find a wall of calico critters. And they had some that we hadn't seen before. And one of them was this little deer family. It's so cute. Nothing to do with Christmas. I mean, I guess it kind of is. And then I had heard that there was a monastery nearby that was something to behold. It was beautiful. So I decided that would be a really cool thing to see. So we drove, it was probably about 15-20 minutes from Santa Claus, and we found the monastery. I cannot remember the name of it right now, but I will put that on the screen. And it was gorgeous. It was so peaceful, so beautiful. So we just kind of drove the grounds, took pictures, and I walked up to an old cemetery that they had on the grounds that had, I think all of everyone from the monastery that had died through the past that had lived there was buried there. That was a really cool thing. And that was just, it was such a fun, memorable experience. Even though we didn't do very much besides driving through and taking pictures, it was really beautiful and so peaceful. So that was really fun after having had the St. Louis experience the day before. It was just a really great thing. So then we ended up getting to Florence, Kentucky, got checked into our room. My mom and my girls and I went to Target to get some groceries. The reason we had this stop was because we wanted to go to the Ark Encounter and the Creation Museum again, because the last time we went there, we were all still Mormon. And I was kind of questioning things, but my oldest daughter wasn't able to enjoy it as much because she had seen some things there that made her, wonder, I guess. And so she was having some anxiety about it. And so we all wanted to go back with this new perspective of things we've learned over the past few years. So also, we learned in the town right next to the Ark Encounter, there is a Miffy store. And Miffy is this little bunny. It's a Dutch thing. And it's really random that in all of America, that's where the store is. But my oldest daughter really loves Miffy and she wanted to go there. So we wanted to go to those 3 places. The first day we went, which would be the next day after getting there, we went to the Creation Museum. It was not as great of experience as it was for me, as it was the first time, because it was really crowded. We got there and there were like dozens of tour buses. We were like, what are we in for? And we were right, because it was insanely crowded. And then also partway through, my daughter noticed that a little bunny that she has on her purse was missing. And so she was kind of upset and, you know, trying to find it the rest of the time we were there. I kept telling her, I bet it's in the car. I feel like it's going to be in the car. And it was. So it ended up okay. We did enjoy it still. We did enjoy walking through and seeing all the things. But also, last time we were there, the food was amazing. And other people who've been there, you might be like, wait, what? Because maybe it wasn't when you were there. But the first time it really was at the cafe. It was so good. And this time it was like mediocre. It was like just okay. So there were a few things that weren't as great this time at the Creation Museum. But it was still really fun to see it all again, and I enjoyed it. I did get to meet Ken Ham, which was fun. He was there doing a presentation. However, it was a presentation I've seen him do on YouTube before, so I didn't really care that much about being there for that. I felt like we should probably go to lunch while he was doing that, because then it would be a little bit less crowded, which kind of worked. But then we went down to the meet and greet, and we were kind of one of the first in the line to meet him, and that was really cool. I was able to tell him that the last time I'd gone, that it was through some of the things that he said, and him and a few other people led me to questioning the Mormon Church and leaving it. And he was like, whoa, and you know, he thought that was really cool. I went into the bookstore they have there, and I got these 3 books. It's called the Remnant Trilogy. They're books about Noah. Now, many of you probably know that I don't really usually like biblical fiction, but I've heard good things about these ones, and I really wanted to just try it out, because I have a book series about dinosaurs called The Truth Chronicles that is by Tim Chaffee, however you say his name. And me and my girls really loved him. And so I know that we like his writing. And so I wanted to try these out. So I got these, and it was a lot cheaper to get the trilogy than it would have been to buy just one of the books, and then if I liked them later to get the other 2. So I decided to take a risk and just get the whole set. My daughters also were enjoying their displays about dragon legends around the world, and so I ended up getting this little notebook that says Dragon Legends Around the World and has a dragon on it. And it was good I did, because when we were going to meet Ken Ham, I was looking around for books to buy for him to sign. And I realized that every book that was there that I was looking at was one I either already owned or was a book that was already signed, like a pre-signed book. So I didn't know what to do, and I didn't want to open up Tim Chaffee's books and have him sign those. So I had him sign in this little notebook, and I thought I can cut that out and glue it into one of my favorite books by Ken Ham. I don't know which one that will be yet, but I will pick one of his books and then glue his signature into it, or tape it in. And then the next day we went to the Ark Encounter, which this time was even better than last time. So that was awesome. It was way less crowded than last time. And then at the Ark, I got another keychain for the Christmas ornament. So we had a great time those 2 days. It is still kind of hard for my dad to go for a long time, do a lot of walking. He has some knee problems, and so it becomes very painful for him to walk on one of his knees. So I was kind of worried about what it would be like at the Creation Museum and the Ark Encounter for him. The Creation Museum, he seemed to be fine. I don't know. He might have not said enough about it. But at the Ark, we did rest a lot. Every once in a while, we'd just all sit on the bench for a little while. And that was actually nice, I think, for all of us to just sit and just, take in what we were doing. So it ended up working out really well, and it was a great time. So then we went, like I said, to the Miffy store. And my daughter, I'm not going to show the souvenirs my kids got that are just theirs, but she got a Miffy doll that looks like a gardener. But then we also got this little cookie tin that is like very Dutch in design, has the windmills and has the little Miffy on there with the Dutch flag. This I thought was a cute little tin that she can use for something, or we can. And it had cookies in it. So I was like, well, that's perfect. Then we can have a snack. We haven't eaten them all yet, but they're good. Then I would also have the cute little container. And my husband is mostly Scottish and Dutch. So it kind of fits as something that we would all like anyway. So we were in Kentucky then a total of 3 nights and 2 days. And then this whole time I was kind of reading the next book, which is John Wesley, The World Has Perished. This is one of the Christian Heroes Then and Now books. So I'll get to that again in a minute, but I had started to read that. From Kentucky, we went to Asheville, North Carolina. My mom and I wanted to go to Biltmore. That's been on my bucket list for a long time. And my daughters really didn't care. They didn't really want to go. And my dad didn't either. And so the plan was to get a hotel where we could check in early they could go and be at the hotel, and then my mom and I could go back out for our Biltmore tour. So I talked to the hotel we were staying at multiple times, and the first person I talked to said, yeah, that should be no problem. At least by 1 o'clock, we'll be able to get you in. And our appointment, the latest appointment I could get at Biltmore was 1:45. So I was like, okay, I think that we can do that. I think we'll be able to do it if we can get in at 1 o'clock. We get to Asheville, we find the hotel, and it was kind of a weird thing that used to be like condominiums or something, but it's like on a hill. And I saw it and I was immediately going, oh my gosh, we have so much luggage. Between 5 people for a 3-week vacation, we have a lot of stuff. So I'm worried about walking upstairs or whatever with all of our stuff. But then it did turn out that you could drive around to the front, and there was an elevator and some of those luggage trolley things that became our best friends on this trip. However, they would not let me check in. And I said, okay, I called a few times and I've been told that we should be able to get in by 1. And they said, nope, you can't get in till 4. And we didn't know what to do. So I was pretty frustrated, but we're like, well, there's nothing we can do. So we will just have to go over to Biltmore. I thought maybe my dad and my daughters could stay in the car while my mom did it. But then I didn't know that to just get to the parking lot where you have to get to, you had to have a ticket. So we went into the little visitor center, and what we ended up doing was buying grounds only tickets for my dad and my daughters. My mom bought that. It was so generous of her. And so we did that. And so then they were able to stay just on the grounds. And my mom and I went into Biltmore, and that was amazing. So beautiful. They have like an audio tour thing that you push in a button and it tells you whatever you need to know as you're in that spot in the house. So it's self-guided, but still has an audio type thing. I think it was so worth the visit. I would love to go there again, actually, and take more time with the grounds and all the different places, because we just really did the house and then drove through the grounds. But it was so beautiful and so fun to see. The library, of course, was my favorite part. So many fireplaces. Oh my gosh. You walk through and you just think, what would it be like to live like this? It's amazing. Then there were the kitchens and the servants' quarters and the pool and a bowling alley. Like, there was just so much there. But what was the big standout to me, besides the library, was just the grounds. Like, looking out upstairs, out at the trees everywhere. I mean, we come from Utah, which, yes, it has the mountains and there's trees up in the mountains and it's really beautiful up in the mountains. But for the most part, it's very brownish, yellow, beige, and it just feels like sagebrush and cement. But to be somewhere looking out and it's just so green and so many trees, it was just gorgeous. And so that was a standout to me. There were a few things there that I really liked in their gift shop, but you know, I didn't want to spend too much and things were a little pricey, but I did of course want a Christmas ornament. I ended up getting this one. It's just a silver, looks like the house. It says Biltmore. I found another one that I liked at first, but then I decided I would get this one because it looks a lot like the one I got at Highclere Castle in England where Downton Abbey is filmed. And so I thought that would look really good. The other one that I had picked up first is this, where it's like a model of the house. And I decided I still wanted this one. And it just says Biltmore at the front of it. And I decided I still wanted this one, and I could just take off the ribbon and then have it next to a couple of books that I have that take place there. So I ended up getting 2 Christmas ornaments at Biltmore. So then we went back to the hotel, and it was after 4, so we could finally check in. We got to our room, and there were just bugs everywhere. And there was one part of the wall that just looked muddy. Like, it looked like it needed to be cleaned, like washed off. I was not impressed. And we killed a few spiders within minutes. And not that that's something, like, there's a lot of places that are going to have a lot of bugs, but I hate spiders. They are one of my biggest fears. And I just don't like bugs. And since it didn't feel clean, then that just was on top of that. Where I was like, okay, is there a lot of bugs just because there's a lot of bugs here? Or is it because it's not clean? I don't know. And none of us felt comfortable there. And they had promised a washer and dryer. And so I had planned on having enough clothes to last until this day. But then we couldn't find it. Turns out there really was a washer and dryer, but they were super small and they were behind a door in the master bedroom and it was a weird place. So then the lady told me that and I was like, oh, okay, now I see it. But that's going to take me 20,000 loads because it's so small. Like in the bedroom, there was bugs like on the walls and I was just, I couldn't do it. So we asked the lady, if we go and change hotels, are we going to have to pay for this or can we get refunded? And thankfully they were very nice. She was, at least. And they said, well, we'll refund you because of the cleanliness factor, because you don't feel like it's clean enough. And I was so grateful because, yeah, when I went in the bathroom, it was like the shower looked dirty. It just wasn't somewhere I would feel comfortable for a normal trip. If we were camping or something, that's different. So we went on an app and found a different hotel that was one that I originally was going to have us stay at, and I had changed it. So I was like, okay, let's try that one again. We got there and it was super sketchy. It was like a super scary looking part of town. I didn't really know that much about Asheville. So if you're really familiar with it, maybe that will make more sense to you. But it was super sketchy. My dad and the girls were sitting outside while my mom and I went in to check in. We got our rooms. We always go to check to make sure there's no bed bugs and stuff like that. So we went to do that and my room stunk. And my mom was like, well, I don't think it's that bad, so she'll switch rooms with us. And I'm like, I don't want you guys to have a stinky room. But we were going to do that. And we went downstairs and my dad had talked about seeing prostitutes going into the hotel. And it just felt like a really sketchy place. And my daughters were very nervous about staying there. So I was like, I don't think we should stay here. So again, we talked to the people that we already paid for the rooms, and thankfully they were very nice and gave us our money back for that as well. And so we got in the car and I just prayed, like, God, I have to trust you here because I am a planner and I always plan everything, and we don't have a plan right now and we're just going to start driving, and I'm going to trust that you're going to help us find a really good hotel that will be safe, in a safe area. It won't be too late. We'll have places we can eat, and that we will just find a place that is a comfortable, safe place for us to stay without knowing anything about the area. And so we drove out of Asheville and we drove down a ways. I saw a Marriott off the side of the road and I was like, okay, this area looks a little bit nicer from the freeway. So we got off. It still was considered, I think, part of Asheville, but it had a different name, which I can't remember right now. Anyway, we find this hotel. It looked pretty fancy, but then they had a military discount they gave to both of us. And so it was super good rates. It was cheaper than the other two hotels by far. And the rooms were huge and so nice. The people at the front desk were so nice. It was the Courtyard by Marriott. I would like them to be known how great they were. So I will find out afterward and I'll put it up on the screen. But we got that. And then the funniest thing about it, not only was it like a safe area, or at least, a safe area for the hotel. I don't know about the rest of the town. It looked like it was. And such nice people, such clean rooms, huge rooms, like probably the biggest rooms we had the whole time besides the ones that were suites with the 2 rooms, in one place. But also right next door is a Cracker Barrel. And so we went over there for dinner. It was so funny because after the tour bus situation earlier, that a tour bus showed up with tons of elderly people on it, all coming into the restaurant at the same time as us. It was close to closing. So they couldn't do as much as we would have liked. There were a few things we couldn't get because they were going to be out of it or not able to make it in the right amount of time. But the people working there were so great. And it was just so nice to be able to relax in an actual restaurant instead of fast food. So it was really nice to have a sit-down restaurant type of experience. And it was just so fun. And we went into the gift shop and they had a stuffed animal that both of my daughters love. So they got those. Also, whenever we've gone to Cracker Barrel, my daughter always plays with these little things, the little pegged toy game. And she hadn't been able to do it yet. And while we were there, she was able to do it successfully. And then they had them for sale in there. So I ended up buying one of those. My daughters talked so much about how it was this day that started out so hard. And then the evening started out so hard, but then it ended so well and perfectly. I mean, the first thing we did when we got into our hotel room was pray, and thank God, because it really did feel like an answer to that prayer that I had done. The next day we were going to be driving to St. Simon's Island in Georgia. And that was why I was reading this book about John Wesley, because I had seen that there was a church on the island where he preached when he was in Georgia. So I wanted to know more about him before going there. I wasn't sure if we were going to be able to go to the church, but I thought it would be cool anyway because I knew he had been in that whole area of Georgia. Like I said, a lot of things didn't pan out exactly right on this trip. On the way there, we get a call from the Best Western that we were going to be staying on St. Simon's Island. And they said that they had a plumbing issue, so they needed to change our reservation to a different hotel. So we pulled over at a rest stop and I looked at that hotel because I thought I remembered not wanting the one that they were changing us to. And sure enough, it was the one I didn't want to go to. We were just trying to figure out, okay, where are we going to stay? Everywhere else besides the place we were going to stay was so expensive. And we ended up deciding to just drive and find something else in Georgia closer to Disney World so that we would have less driving the next day getting to Disney World, and we would do St. Simon's afterward and cancel the hotel that we had for the night in between Disney World and Tennessee, because I wasn't that excited about that hotel anyway. And so I could cancel that one, and then we could go to St. Simon's that night. So that is what we did. And we ended up finding a hotel in southern Georgia that was pretty close to the border. And it was a good one too. So it was nice. And so that's what we did that day. We went to our first Buc-ee's ever. The next day we drove to Disney World, and it was really chaotic. I don't know what they've done with check-in and stuff, but it just felt so different. We always stay at Pop Century. We've always stayed there. I would love to try something new next time. In the past, we've gone 3 times before this, and we've always stayed at Pop Century. So we did that again. We'd asked for the 70s building is where we always stayed. In fact, we always were next to the big Mickey Mouse telephone, if you've ever stayed at Pop Century. And this time they had an ornament of it. So even though we didn't stay next to this time, I still had to buy this in remembrance of our past trips. But we got there, and, you know, they used to do a Magical Express thing where if you were at the airport, you come in on buses and get off, but they don't do that anymore. So I think a lot of people might rent cars, because there were so many more cars than I've ever experienced there, even the other time we drove. And so that was pretty chaotic getting ready. We were in the 90s building, which was so far away. I felt like it was the furthest away building, but luckily we were able to get some trolleys, and we were able to park pretty close to it. So we didn't have as far for my dad to walk, and we were able to get checked in. Those rooms at Pop Century are really small. And this was the first time that was an issue, because my daughters were so young before it didn't really matter, but they've changed them where they used to have 2 queen beds. Now they have 1, and then there's a fold down one. We left it folded down the whole time because we didn't want to just be putting it up and down all the time. I've heard that like after that 2020 kind of changed some things, and some things don't go as smoothly at Disney World as they used to, but they're working on that. So I hope that's true and that it will all go back, because it felt like it wasn't as smooth as it was before, but it's still very clean, very nice. You know, it's just fun to be there. So it was so awesome when Doug showed up. We were so happy to see him and finally like be together, our little family of 4 again. And so that night we went to downtown Disney. We went to T-Rex restaurant there. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it to everyone because it's loud, but this time it was especially loud. I think because it was more crowded at Disney than we are used to. We have usually gone in like November or December. And so this is our first time ever going in April. It was so much more crowded than it's ever been when we were there before, plus hotter. So downtown Disney was way busier than we've ever seen it. And so T-Rex was as well, but it is a really fun atmosphere. Every room has kind of a theme with dinosaurs, and that's why it's so loud, because there's, you know, roaring and meteor showers, different things going on. And the food is good. Really good, but it's really expensive too. But it was fun to go and have that experience. Then my mom went back to the hotels because my dad had stayed behind, and Doug and the girls and I just kind of shopped, went around. We went to Goofy's Candy Company, I think that's what it's called, and Doug and my youngest made personalized treats. So we just had a good time, and then rode the bus back to Pop Century. And then the first day, it was Monday the 20th, we went to Hollywood Studios. That was an almost perfect day. It was so good. It was cooler. It was a little bit windy. We wanted to go on the Rise of the Resistance Star Wars ride first, but it was closed down. So we couldn't do it. So I said, okay, well, since that's closed down right now, instead of going and getting in line for something that might not even open, let's go to the Mickey and Minnie Railway, the new roller coaster. We hadn't been on that yet. So we went to that first. We were in line for quite a while, but it was so fun. We all said that was probably our favorite ride at Disney World this time. And it was just such a fun ride, and it's so cool. So we really enjoyed that. And then we went back over to the Star Wars section and did the Millennium Falcon ride thing. And they put me in as a pilot, and I epically failed. It was horrible, but it was so funny. So we had a lot of fun doing that. And then we went to Toy Story Mania and a few other things, and it was lunchtime. So we went to lunch, and while we were at lunch, I looked at my phone app, and it showed that the Rise of the Resistance had a wait. So I was like, it must be open again. And so the girls did not feel like going and waiting in line for it. My mom and Doug, my dad didn't go to the parks. My dad stayed at the hotel room the whole week, just doing his own thing. He doesn't really care about the parks as much. So that's just one thing to note. My mom and Doug are huge Star Wars fans, and My girls don't really care about it, and I'm like a fan. I'm a fan of it, but not a super fan. We decided that we would just let them go get in line and they could ride it, and we would go do other things. So because my girls wanted to shop around and look through the stores and different things like that. So we went and we got my youngest daughter wanted a Mickey Mouse ice cream. We got that and sat on a bench and just kind of looked at things and just relaxed. And my oldest daughter has this game, I think it's a Twisted Wonderland game, and she had been trying to get a special Chip and Dale themed something or other on it and hadn't been able to yet. And we were sitting there on the bench and Chip and Dale walked by behind us and she said, okay, that might be good luck. I'm going to get on and try it. So she got on it and tried it and was able to get it. And so it was this really funny moment. So then she really wanted to meet them, even though we've met them in the past and we knew we were going to have a meal with them later in the week. We went to the Little Mermaid show while we were waiting, and in the gift shop by the Little Mermaid show, they saw this little Ursula rubber ducky and they really wanted it. I'm not sure why, but they really did. So we got that. And then when we were going down the street, the security guards were so cute. They were, there was a mama duck and a bunch of baby ducks. And so they were going along, protecting them to get them to the little pond. So that was so much fun to see. How many there are? Oh, there's the mom. So we had a great time at Hollywood Studios. When we got back with my mom and Doug, we got in the line for Chip and Dale and we got some pictures with Chip and Dale for the girls. And we went back to the hotel and rested for a few hours, got my dad, and then we did one of their minivans. It's like getting an Uber, but more pricey. But for my dad, that worked out really well to not have to go and do a lot of transportation to get to the Polynesian resort. So we were having a dinner at Ohana's that night, and that was amazing. We all loved that restaurant. So that was a great experience. And the minivans were so convenient and the people driving them were awesome. So we really liked doing that. The next day we went to Magic Kingdom. We only had 4 days to do parks. So that took a lot of thinking. Whenever we've gone before to Disney World, we've always gone for like 10 days. We always go for a really long trip because the tickets get cheaper, you know, the longer you're there. That gives us rest days. It gives us multiple days at each park. So we've always done that, which is why we don't go that often. This time we had to decide, okay, what are we going to do with only 4 days? And I thought 1 day at each park at first, but we really wanted to have 2 days at Epcot because that's probably our favorite park. So we did 2 days at Epcot, 1 in Magic Kingdom, 1 Hollywood Studios, and we just didn't go to Animal Kingdom this time, which was sad. I really wanted to go, but we figured we've been there before. We'll probably go again, so we'll just go to those ones. So we went to Magic Kingdom, and this is a hard park to do only in 1 day. We made a list of everybody's favorite rides, like the one if you can pick one ride that you want to go on the most, which one will it be? So everybody got to pick that way, and then anything on top of that was just something good. Of course, mine was Peter Pan, and unfortunately my daughter had this pin that she had made, a button that she had made before the trip, and she lost it somewhere in the Peter Pan ride. They let me go back through the line looking for it, but I couldn't see it, so it was probably on the ride, like in the seat or something, or somebody picked it up and took it. I don't know what happened to it, but that put a huge damper on the day. She was really sad to have lost that. And so it did affect the mood a little bit, but we rode the carousel. Well, a couple people in the party rode the carousel and the teacups. Doug ran over to do Tron, and he was the only one that really wanted to do that. So he went and did that. And while he was doing that, we did the Little Mermaid ride and Small World. And then we had lunch at Columbia Harbor House, which was really good. And then we went to the Haunted Mansion and we went to Pirates of the Caribbean. I can't remember if we did anything else, but we did just kind of the favorite rides of everybody and then a few extra ones. And then we had dinner at Liberty Tree Tavern that night, which is one of our favorite places to eat there. So it was a really fun day for the most part, but it had that big problem that, you know, was kind of made it harder to enjoy it the whole day. And then Wednesday we went to Epcot and we did the World Showcase part. So we started in Norway with a breakfast at Akershus, which is another one of our very favorite places to eat in Disney World. It's a princess character dining, but it's only 1 dining credit instead of 2 like the castle is. And we feel like in the past, we've had better character encounters there. So we really like going there. It was so much fun. It's just really good food, really fun servers. I mean, so many people at Disney World are fantastic. They're cast members, the employees. And so we had the breakfast there and then we just went through all the countries going along. We wanted to do the World Showcase the first day so that if my daughter saw anything in Japan, because she was the most excited about going to the Japanese pavilion, if she saw anything there and then didn't get it because we give them like a little Disney gift card before we go. If you buy them at Target, if you have the Target membership, you can get them with the 5% off. So it only saves a little bit, but it still saves some. If she wanted something that we would still have another day where we could then go back if we needed to. So we went through the whole World Showcase. So much fun. We rode the Frozen ride. My mom had never ridden it. And then we wanted to ride the Ratatouille, but it had too long of a line. So we decided that since we had to take the Skyliner thing from Pop Century to Epcot, I wish that they didn't force you to do that, because I called ahead of time and they said, oh yeah, we still have buses. You can just choose. But that wasn't the case. They did not have buses to Epcot or Hollywood Studios for us. And I am afraid of heights, and so is my oldest daughter. And I was able to, once we were there, be like, okay, this is very convenient. And it's, you know, I was anxious kind of the whole time I was on them, but I liked that we were all able to sit. I liked that we were able to be alone most of the time. So I could see the pluses of it enough to enjoy it. But my oldest daughter, it was so hard. She was so scared the whole time. And come to find out, my youngest daughter was also kind of scared on it. So that was unfortunate. I wish that you could do different things, but it's fine. We had to ride that. That took you to the back of Epcot. So we thought, okay, well, tomorrow when we come, we'll be at the back. We'll be right next to France, so we can go ride the Ratatouille ride then. So that is what we did. So we finished up that day, left, went back to our room, very exhausted. You walk a lot at Disney, as anybody who's been there will know. And so then the next day we went, rode the Ratatouille ride. That was really cute. And then we went to the front of the park and did Soarin' and Spaceship Earth. We wanted to do Living with the Land. I think a lot of people consider it more of a boring ride. It's just a little boat ride, seeing the things that they grow there. But we have never had any sort of line there. Never. Like, walk on every single time. And it was like an hour wait or more. Like, it was such a long line. We could not believe it. That is how much more crowded it was than any other time we've been there. We were like, wait, this thing has a line sometimes? But then we did go to lunch at Garden Grill. So that is the restaurant there next to Living with the Land and Soarin'. It's a rotating one. It has Chip and Dale and Mickey Mouse, and they're in like farmer clothes, and it's kind of farmery, home cooking type of food. So that was really fun. My mom had not gone there before, so it was fun to take her with us. Doug had gone back the night before by himself to ride the Guardians of the Galaxy ride. And so he had already done that part, and we didn't care about that as much. So then we did go back to China, because there were some dresses there my daughter really wanted. And they were really good price. They were like normal dress prices. I was shocked. And so we went back and got those for her. She really wanted those. Then we did go back to Japan for a couple of things. So that was the last day in a park. And it was so much fun. It was so much fun. So then we went back to the hotel. My girls have some souvenirs from there that are stuffed animals or different things that they liked, which I don't have in here. But we always try to get ornaments for the family as well. This year we picked out this little Sword in the Stone book. You open it up and it's got little pop-up and plays the music from it. So we got that for our family ornament for Disney World this time. We did get the Mickey Mouse foam one as well, just for fun, kind of a nod back to our old trips. We saw this little Sleeping Beauty book too. It had chocolates in it, and they were coffee flavored. And so I gave those to my youngest daughter, who likes coffee. But I just thought this would look really cute in here on my library shelves, this little book of Sleeping Beauty. We have this with all of the princess signatures on it from Akershus. And then I got this little pin in Japan. We do like to do pin collecting. We don't do it a lot, especially now. We did it a lot more when my daughters were younger. But we did find this pin that has a Mickey Mouse ear, and it says it started with a mouse. And then it opens up and has just different pictures of Walt and Mickey. So we thought that was cool. So we got that pin. I think that's all I have in here for us. So we got those things. And then mainly the biggest purchases at Disney were my daughters buying things in Japan. They got things for characters that they like and different things like that. My oldest daughter got some Spy Family socks. So between China and Japan, my oldest daughter got 2 dresses. And then in Japan, we got her a kimono. And that was a really fun experience because there were 2 Japanese girls there. My daughter speaks Japanese, and she did speak to them a little bit. She was kind of nervous, but she spoke to them a little bit. They saw her looking at one of the kimonos and were like, do you want to try it on? So they helped her to do it, to show how it would look. And I mean, I don't know the last time I saw her look that happy. And so I was like, we have to get this. And I was really nervous. I was like, how much is this going to cost? So I went over and looked at it. I'm like, oh, okay. It's not that bad. And then they had like the big bow on the back, and they helped her with that. And it was beautiful. I loved it. So we got her that. That was really exciting because Japan is like her passion. She loves Japanese. She loves Japan history and culture. It's not just like the Japanese anime and stuff that's new. She does like some of that. But it's the history of Japan that she loves, like the ancient history and the samurais and all that. She knows so much about it. And so that was really exciting for her, not only to be able to get some things like that, but also to just listen to them speaking Japanese and see all of it. She got a fan a little fan. I can't remember everything else they got, but they both got quite a few things between those two countries. And then we ate in Japan at their counter service, like the fast food type of restaurant, because she wanted to try udon. And so we got stuff there. It was just really great. So that was Disney World. And then Friday, the 24th, we left. Doug helped me get the car loaded, which was so helpful, but he was able to help me with that. And then he left to go get the plane home, and we left to go to St. Simons, Georgia. I was having a really stressful time trying to figure out, where are we going to stay on this place? The hotels are so expensive, and we weren't sure we wanted to do the Best Western, but then it didn't have any openings anyway, as far as I could tell. And so then we were going to go to Jekyll Island too, but we kind of came up with the idea of, what if we skip Jekyll Island because we don't have that much time and we didn't want to leave super early. And we just go to St. Simons, go to the lighthouse, be on the island, check it out, and then go further, like a couple hours further, so that we are closer to Tennessee the next day. So that is what we ended up doing. And so we drove up to St. Simons. I was really nervous getting there because I could see that there was a big bridge, and I don't think I would call it a panic attack, but I had extreme anxiety on the Coronado Bridge a few years ago. The last time we went to Coronado Island in California with my parents also. And I had driven over that bridge multiple times in my life. We lived on Coronado Island for a while when I was a kid. But for some reason that time I got anxiety and then driving back over it. And so ever since then, I have had some bridge anxiety. And so I was kind of nervous about it, because I saw that it was really tall. And so I was looking it up. Can you get there without going on the bridge? No, you can't do it. And so then we drove over it and it wasn't so bad. So I was really glad about that. But then the funniest thing was, when we left the island, we left it without going over that bridge. So I really didn't have to do it, but I'm glad I did, because then I was able to conquer that fear. It wasn't as bad. But we went and we visited the Lighthouse Museum. We didn't go through the museum or up into the lighthouse because there was a wedding happening while we were there. But we were able to go into the gift shop. We were able to walk down next to the water for a while, and it was beautiful. It's so fun to be there, and we love lighthouses. My mom and I love lighthouses, so that was really cool. And I got this little keychain there with the lighthouse on it. I got a bookmark. That says St. Simons Lighthouse, and then I got this book called New Moon Rising by Eugenia Price. And it says, a rich, timeless tale of love, hardship, and the journey for happiness in the war-torn South. In New Moon Rising, Eugenia Price gives us a story of faith and courage that follows the struggle of James Gould's son, Horace, to find his own place in life. So it's like the years leading up to the Civil War, and it takes place on St. Simons Island. And this is book 2, apparently. It felt to me like it sounds like a book that could be read by itself, but the first book my mom bought. So we bought books 1 and 2 between the two of us so we could share them, because they both just sounded so good. So that was really fun to see that, to go there. Then we drove up to, it was in Hilton Head, but it was not right in Hilton Head, if that makes sense. It was like a little town that's considered Hilton Head, but it was kind of closer to the freeway. And we stayed at a hotel there. If I had seen the hotel beforehand, I would have thought it was going to be insanely expensive. But it was actually really normal priced, and it was gorgeous. It was a beautiful area, such a nice hotel. And it was about 2 hours past St. Simons. So I was really glad we decided to do that. Then the next day we had a little bit of a shorter day driving up to where we needed to be in Tennessee. So when we got there, we checked into an Airbnb that was a home in a neighborhood very close to our friends. And then we went over to their house, hung out with them. She made us dinner, and we were able to just chat and hang out for a long time. This house also had a little bit of a cleanliness problem. I went into the bathroom and there were tons of toiletries, and so I took them all off because we had our own stuff and it was really dirty under them. So I had to like Clorox wipe the whole shower and bath area. I was really glad I had Clorox wipes. I am very prepared on a trip, but I am an overpacker. Still, you know, a nice house, great area. So we were, and we were so close to them that it made it really worth it. The next day we went and met them and went to church with them. And they're, like I said, Southern Baptist. So we went to their church there. And we really loved their church. It was a great church. It was beautiful music. So it was really fun to go to that. And my parents loved it too. And so then we went over to their house afterward, had a lunch together, just sat and talked. It was probably one of the best moments of the trip, watching my dad and his friend, you know, talk to each other. And it was just really great. And then we went back to our house and relaxed the rest of the night and just got ready to leave again the next day. So then we were going to go from there to Williamsburg. And like I said, the weather forecast was showing rain again. So we decided to change up the whole rest of the trip again. And we decided to go the southern route because we were looking at the map and it was showing severe weather, severe weather, severe weather, everywhere severe weather. But we thought, well, maybe the southern route will be a little bit better because we're less likely to have snow. And we didn't want to have snow. Before I forget, I forgot to mention that our friends, she gave my daughters these little bookmarks that say frog, fully rely on God, and have a little scripture on it. And then she gave each of them little frog statues that were so cute. So later on, the next day, as we were driving to Arkansas, we had stopped at a gas station. And when I went in, they had Tennessee things, and they had this little frog keychain that says Tennessee on its belly. Oh, I'm showing you the back of it. So it's a little frog with a little heart on its belly and it says Tennessee. So I thought that would be perfect since she had given us frog themed things, which is fun also because I used to collect frogs when I was a teenager. So we got to Arkansas. It was fine. It was a nice hotel. It was nothing too exciting. It was just a stop along the way. Then the next day we went to McKinney, Texas. I'd heard of this city because of some not good Mormon-y things that had happened there in that area, but I knew it was a good area because of hearing those stories and watching some things that had to do with it. And so we stayed there and it was a great hotel. We loved it. I loved the town area. It was beautiful. That whole day, it's like Tennessee is just beautiful. I just love it. And then when we were going into the first part of Texas, it was the same thing. It was just so beautiful, so green, so many trees. And we get there and it was so crowded. The roads were so crowded and we're like, what is happening? And we got to the hotel and it was a storm is coming in. A severe storm is coming in. We're hoping it will only be rain, not tornadoes, but it probably will have hail. You know, we don't know. So everybody's hunkering down. People were getting off work early. So we were really nervous. And so we went and hurried and got some dinner, came back to the room. We went to our separate rooms and just were like, let's watch TV, eat some food, relax the rest of the night, and hope that this storm doesn't bring tornadoes to us. And it was so crazy because we were expecting something so big and it went right past us. It missed McKinney and it was a really bad storm. So we were very blessed to not have to deal with that right where we were at. So then the next day we left and we drove to New Mexico, and it was advertised as like the great little town on Route 66. And we got there and it was not the greatest place. We were not that excited about this little town that we stayed in. The hotel was fine. So that was fine. However, I did have to ask for a different room twice. So I felt like I was having some bad luck. And then the last day we were going to be going to Durango, Colorado, but then we were getting things on our phone saying that there was a freeze warning. And I'm like, I do not want to drive through the mountains in snow. So we tried to get out of it and they wouldn't let us out of it. So we were like, okay, fine, let's just go and we'll see what happens. And thankfully that, you know, it's probably a good thing we did because that did not happen. It got cold, but there was no rain and snow where we were at. I think the higher elevations higher than Durango did, but we were fine. We were safe. The next day was a perfect weather day to drive home. We were so happy to be home. So a very long trip. Sometimes the only option was McDonald's. And so I would get a Happy Meal and I got this little frog book the last day of the trip. I thought that was cute and kind of thematic. So we got home and it was great. But I'm going to talk now about the second book. So the John Wesley book, I finished this. This was not my favorite of the Christian heroes books. It was really interesting at the beginning, but then it kind of petered out for me and I just didn't enjoy it as much as the other ones, but it was good. It was fine. I didn't love learning about his life as much as some of the other people that I've read about. And when we were on St. Simon's Island, we did not end up going to the church. We only did the lighthouse for time. It looked like it was about 20 minutes away, so we just decided to skip that. So I didn't end up needing to read it, but I did read it and I was glad I read it because I know about somebody new now. So that is the very long trip report of our 3-week road trip. Probably like I said, the most I've ever had to change a trip or had things change on a trip ever. I am an ultra planner, so you know, I plan everything and then I have to be flexible after that. And this trip really tested me on flexibility and it turned out good. There were some hard things. There were some, you know, things that we wished we could have done that we didn't do. I was telling my mom this morning that we also could see God's hand like so much in this trip. And also we had so many good experiences. We had so many good places we were able to go, so many fun family experiences. It was so much fun to have Doug halfway through. I think that was perfect to have that right in the middle of the trip so that we could be together as a family after being apart and then we're apart again, you know, before getting home. But it was great. As far as my May reading goes, Obviously, I did not get to most of the books I wanted to read in April, so if I did a May TBR, it would just be repeating what I did in my April TBR. So you can go back and watch that again if you want to know what I'm going to try to read in May. May is just a continuation, and in fact, the 2 readathons that I was trying to do in April or wanted to take part in, but was like, realistically, I'm probably not going to be able to, but I'm just going to put it out there anyway. I still have those in my reading journal, and I was able to mark off 1 book for each of them, but I am going to continue just putting things into them and just see if by the end of May I can mark off everything in both of those, and they will just be extended for me. Hopefully, if you got this far, you can tell me if you've gone to any of these places we went on this road trip, or if you've read either of these books. I really wanted to do more of a vlog type situation for this trip, but I just never did. I was too tired and there was too much going on, and I'm not very good at vlogging yet. I get very awkward and uncomfortable and self-conscious when I'm filming if other people are around or I'm in public. So sorry that it wasn't that kind of a video. I really did want it to be. When it's a trip thing, I think it is more fun to be able to see a lot of footage, but hopefully having pictures and stuff here and there helped this to be more interesting. Oh, and I should also mention my favorite book in April of those 2 books was A Hope Unburied. So that one was awesome, and you probably would have already known that just based on my reviews.